Hi friends. I've realized something about myself recently. When I start banging on about something, like
maniacal Girl Scouts trying to make quota.
maybe it's time I just sat down and made a video. And this is going to be a little different because I'm talking about a book series rather than a film, so you're going to have to put up with more of my face. But there we are. So if you've never heard of Discworld, it's not exactly a series of books. What it is, it's a world of books. A whole collection, over 40 some books, and some short stories too, written by the remarkable and much missed Sir Terry Pratchett. So this is Discworld, world and mirror of worlds. As Sir Terry tells us, fictional worlds have this extra element called narrativium. You see, it sits at atomic number tum-ti-tum, and what it does is when it's present in a world, things work as they are supposed to, according to story. Unlike our world, round world, where things work according to these weird rules we call science, that we don't understand and yet shape our world. Round world actually exists in Discworld. It sits on a shelf in Unseen University, and the wizards experiment with it now and then. That kind of tells you how weird a world we're delving into. But you know, weird is good. Weird is good. Discworld has a lot of narrativium, so naturally it works as it should. It's flat. A disc to be precise. And it sits on the back of 4 elephants, naturally. Where else would you put a world? And they, of course, naturally stand upon the back of a giant turtle. Now you might think that the turtle stands on another turtle and we've got a turtles all the way down kind of thing. But no, turtles swim. So great Atuan, the sky turtle, swims in the sky. And that's our world. And upon this world live our characters in various places and in various groups where they have their stories. Originally, Sir Terry wrote it as a satire of fantasy, a loving satire of Tolkien, and maybe not so loving of some of the other sword and sandal ones that he likes to take the mick out of a bit. But it grew. It became a satire of our world itself, of so many of our stories in the world. Detective stories, sports stories, war stories, adventure stories, Shakespeare, Phantom of the Opera. It's all here. Somewhere or another, it all exists in Discworld. And you can read them chronologically. Some people do. But a lot of us prefer to read it thematically, because it's not, as I said, it's not a series of books, one after the other. But there are protagonists and groups of protagonists who have their own series. And I could go through and explain them all, but other people have done that better than me. So I'm going to link to the Discworld Emporium that has a whole, couple different reading tracks if you want. I recommend reading thematically. I love the witches, I love the watch. Wherever you start in Discworld is fine, because that's where you start. But what I'd like to do in this video is talk about why I love this world, why I keep coming back to it, what it means to me. So like I said, he began with satirizing fantasy. He started in 1983 actually, and his last book was published after his death in 2015. 40 some books in that time. That's a lot of stories, a lot of satire. What he did was he elevated satire. He used it as a way to explore all kinds of ideas about our humanity. Social ideas, political ideas, gender ideas, all sorts of things. And he imbued everything with this particular kind of humanism, this deep love of people in all our weirdness, our lovely species that we are. And he had a talent for making over these complicated big ideas into something simple and straightforward. I'm just going to use an example here. Sin, young man, is when you treat people like things, including yourself. That's what sin is. It's a lot more complicated than that. No, it ain't. When people say that things are a lot more complicated than that, they mean they're getting worried that they won't like the truth. People as things. That's where it starts. Oh, I'm sure there are worse crimes, but they starts with thinking about people as things. That's Granny Weatherwax. Or more accurately, that's my attempt at Granny Weatherwax. I did my best. But it's not just Granny Weatherwax. That's Immanuel Kant's second categorical imperative. Here's how Kant wrote it. Act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never merely as a means to an end, but always at the same time as an end. But honestly, how many of us want to read Kant? I mean, don't get me wrong. Thank you for reinventing philosophy. We owe you a great deal. You are a bugger to read. Maybe it's a translation from German to English, but he's hard to read. Sir Terry Pratchett is a joy to read. For me. If you prefer Immanuel Kant just as he is, more power to you. They both got a point. The same point. Like I said, big complicated idea in this simple, straightforward, don't treat people as things. And that's how Sir Terry treated a lot of big ideas and big issues, by looking for the simple humanity at the heart of it. And that's why, even as a cishet white man, he managed to tackle a lot of racial issues and gender issues and LGBT stuff with remarkable empathy, and sometimes he hit the nail on the head. Sometimes he missed, but hey, that's gonna happen. Nobody's perfect. But you'll find some impressive wisdom in there. I certainly have. Using that lens of looking for the humanity in things, he gave us all these wonderful characters. And the thing about the characters in Discworld is so often, actually nearly always, his characters are misfits, othered people, marginalized in some way or another. Monsters. I mean, some of you know I'm studying monster theory, which is the way our society remakes people who are othered as monsters. And here, the stories are full of monsters, witches, werewolves, zombies, but they're not othered. They're not monsters. They are people. They're all people. And they all contribute to their stories. Almost always, it is the thing that makes them a misfit, the thing that makes them weird and not fit, is the thing that makes them needed in the story, that makes them solve something. And the people who we in our world see in power, getting away with stuff, that sort of people, often they're the villains. He's got a pretty good idea of who are the bad guys in our world. And that's something I appreciate too. And yeah, the thing about having misfits and that together is you can have wonderful found families that way. It's the only kind of found family that's ever worked for me, is one where we're all misfits together. And Pratchett is full of misfits together. And among this world full of misfits, the characters have become to me like old friends. And I think to a lot of readers. You know, the orangutan librarian who shows up in every book. And nobody is turning that ape back into a human, no matter what. Or the patrician, or Red Shoe, Nobby Knobs, the Duckman. Then there are the female characters. Now, not every woman worked out right. There are a few here and there with a case of, oh, sweetie, you were written by a man, weren't you? But mostly they're actual humans. And to his credit, as he wrote more and more, he got better and better at writing women. And so with female characters, we get people like Granny Weatherwax, one of my all-time favorites, who lives for her work and has an ironclad self-belief and the skills to back it up. And her partner in crime, Nanny Ogg, who can take the piss out of everyone, even Granny, and knows some fun songs too. Or there's Susan Stowe-Hellett, who's Death's granddaughter, because Death is a character in the Discworld. He's an anthropomorphic personification who has fallen in love with humanity. In the later books, the ones that are suitable for a slightly younger audience, but also, I love them as much as any other, we get Tiffany Aching, who would absolutely make Anne Shirley or Jo Marsh or young Jane Eyre just stand up and cheer. And she's training to be a witch. But this isn't Hogwarts. It's Discworld. It's a good read. And there's Cheery Littlebottom, who is a ball of sunshine. She's a dwarf, just like straight out of Tolkien. And her society, there is no gender. Or more specifically, the gender that no one isn't is male. But she knows herself to be female. So she's gonna weld on some high heels onto her mining boots and part her beard any way she wants. But the character that speaks to my heart, more than any other character, is Lady Sybil Ramkin. She's a big woman who is shaped by existing in the world as a big woman. Her world, like ours, wants women to be small and doesn't really have a place for those of us who don't fit the size. Yet in these books, she's allowed to be big and to be loved and to be desirable and to be capable and to be a whole woman, a whole person, and loved not by some random side character, but by the hero of our story. She's something else. And yeah, there's a couple books where she's underutilized, but there's also times when she comes into her own and we see her full capabilities and how she has been shaped by the way she's lived in the world. And she just has the biggest heart. And I love her. And I don't know that I can express to anyone who's never experienced it how rarely women of size ever see ourselves in a story. Not as a joke, not as a figure of pity, not as the funny comic relief that the real girl, laughs to or whatever, supports the real characters. How often a woman of size gets to be in a story. And I'll never forgive the adaptation that cast a thin woman as her. So that's Discworld, a world of wonderful characters and big ideas played out on a human scale. And more than that, Discworld is about story. It's about the love of story, the way that stories shape us and that we shape the world with our stories. And Discworld has shaped me in 1,000 ways. It's made me laugh out loud when I thought all I could do was scream. It's made me cry more than a few times. And it's made me think. It's made me a better human. It has made me a better human. And it has given me mirrors to find myself, and to see the broken bits of me. And to be okay with the brokenness, because I can pick them up and put them together in a story. That's what Discworld is. That's why I love it. That's why I offer it to you. You might love it too. So, I hope you liked that. A little different. I promise I'm working on a long essay about Buffy. Hopefully that'll be out sometime in February, March at the latest, depending on how long it takes me to edit. Working on it. Bit of channel news. I am just about at 500 subscribers, which, hey, that's awesome. And I started a Patreon. It's the only tier is $1. So if you want to send me a buck for my videos, it just charges when I put out a video rather than every month, because I put out videos when I can. So if you want to do that, link in the description. If you want to check out some Discworld books, the link's in the description. And thanks.